federal activity to governors and legislatures at the state level. States, cities, and local police have already signed memoranda of agreements with the feds to fight terrorism, and officers are already assigned as task force officers. Okay? This is so over-encompassing and so broad that it literally has it's not just people like myself. It's just this means Trump voters even. You know what I mean? This is anyone and everyone. Hold on. 1 second. NSPM 7 says that the JTTFs shall investigate potential federal crimes relating to acts of recruiting or radicalizing persons for the purpose of political violence, terrorism, or conspiracy against rights, and the violent deprivation of any citizen's rights. These last two parts here are also intentionally vague to be as broad and as over-encompassing as possible, okay? Because some of this stuff, like radicalizing people for the purpose of political violence, directly intervenes with the First Amendment, because you can say that about anyone, right? You can say that about anyone and everyone. You're Cook, no. I mean, yeah, this is basically written as a fucking, written as a way to apprehend and single me out as like a fucking domestic terrorist. But it's written in such a way that it also extends to fucking literally David Pakman even. You know what I mean? It's written as a way that this could mean anyone from people like myself all the way to like the Podjohns, okay? It's not just people like myself. It's not like Jason and Ruhe or whatever. It straight up implies, the way this is written, it straight up implies that if you're like a part of the Satan Church, for example, and you know, you're doing like a fundraiser or a back to school drive or something, you are potentially liable here. You can be prosecuted. You can be investigated. Philip DeFranco, like every single person that has ever conveyed any sort of like anti-racist statement is liable for an investigation or a prosecution. There's a gender indication there that means that if you're gay or trans, again, you could be pegged as an extremist. If you're black or brown and you have exhibited anti-racist tendencies, or if you have participated in any sort of like anti-white supremacist action, anti-ICE protests, extremism on migration, that's what this means. I know a lot of you are laughing at me saying you could be pegged and going, lol, pegged as gay and trans, lol, don't peg the gays and trans, but like you're not understanding the severity of this crisis once again. Okay? This is an attempt to criminalize any sort of non-Republican viewpoint. I don't even want to say leftist viewpoint here, okay? I don't even want to say non-Republican viewpoint here, because like this even could potentially criminalize Republican viewpoints as well, as long as they are a Republican that says, yeah, I also think ICE is fucked up. You are now a target. Moron simply thought they were because FBI duped him into thinking they were. All of this politically consequential information is lost. The FBI foiled its own plots so they can, 1, scare us about official enemies, and 2, trick the public into thinking they're all Jack Bauer. The vast majority of these foiled plot cases are total horseshit. This is from the Human Rights Watch report from 2014, The Illusion of Justice, talking about exactly what I was saying about the FBI consistently building up a narrative of like Islamic terror at the height of the war on terror, the global war on terror, in an effort to universalize the fears that Americans should feel so they feel more self-righteous and more comfortable with all of the domestic interference in political organizing, and also feel more comfortable with the metric ton of violence that we were dishing out in the Middle Eastern region. Some analyses show, according to Salon.com, that only 1% of quote-unquote terrorists caught by the FBI could actually be said to be quote-unquote terrorists. Like, you know, people who legitimately, on their own, radicalize and choose to take action, and then the FBI infiltrates or intercepts their communications with like a foreign entity or whatever, and then stops them before they actually engage in an act of like stochastic terror. Okay? The overwhelming majority of intelligence community operations of this sort are built around coercion and entrapment role in designing a media landscape, especially by pliant media members who will cover this stuff without actually diving into the details to justify what other additional measures that the government may take in terms of mass surveillance and in terms of disruption and creating watch lists and creating an environment of insecurity around any sort of expression of political dissent. That is the overarching goal of the government here. Now, with Donald Trump's directive retooling the counterterror apparatus to go after Americans at home, this means monitoring political activity or speech as an investigative method to discover radicalism. Contrary to other national security documents, all during the post-Watergate era, NSPM 7 doesn't even mention the First Amendment or the fundamental right of Americans to organize and protest. The focus on speech is evident throughout NSPM 7. The directive says that political violence is the result of organized campaigns that often begin with the left, dehumanizing targets in an anonymous chat forums. Okay, peki. Dur baba, tamam. Okay, göndereceğim. Nereye? Okay. Gel, aldım. Okay. My dad is trying to talk to me while I'm reading this thing. Jesus Christ. Hold on. In anonymous chat forums, in in-person meetings, social media, and even educational institutions. Remember, even in college, okay, even in a classroom. To give a sense of how broad this formulation is, Trump's earlier designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorist group was accompanied by a White House fact sheet singling out people who celebrated Luigi Mangione, the alleged killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, last December. As I wrote at the time, this describes a lot of Americans. This is not a political singling out of radical potential terrorism or something, okay? This is straightforwardly prosecuting whoever they want to prosecute. Like, this is trying to create an environment where there is just cause to go after whoever the fuck they want. This thing that I'm doing. Okay. Trump's new national security memorandum also alludes to Mangione, but adds to it even larger categories of potential targets. NSPM 7 is fundamentally a law enforcement directive, and it dispenses with the complications of using the active duty military or the National Guard in pursuit of political violence. It directs the Department of Justice to focus the FBI's approximately 200 joint terrorism task forces to the new mission. The FBI network of task forces comprises over 4,000 members, including FBI personnel and task force officers from more than 500 state and local agencies and 50 federal agencies, including special agents, police officers, intelligence analysts, and surveillance technicians. First established in New York City in 1980 to systematize FBI and NYPD cooperation, today there are task forces around the country, including at least one in each of the FBI's 55 field offices. For the Trump White House, the beauty of using an already existing network is that it bypasses congressional oversight and scrutiny and even obscures federal. The Attorney General shall issue specific guidance that ensures domestic terrorism priorities include politically motivated terrorist attacks such as organized doxing campaigns, swatting, rioting, looting, trespass, assault, destruction of property, threats of violence, and civil disorder. The NSPM 7 says, civil disorder, question mark. I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but the plain truth is that the NSPM 7 is a declaration of war on anyone who does not support the Trump administration and its agenda. Yes, it repeats the word violent over and over to purport only to go after citizens who are moved to take up arms, but it also directs monitoring and intelligence collection to map and target new evildoers, to borrow a Bush label he took from the Bible just that days after 9/11. Okay? Hold on. The partisan focus couldn't be more obvious. The real problem is this. Since Charlie Kirk was murdered, a friend of mine assassinated, nothing changed on their side. White House counterterrorism czar Sebastian Gorka told Newsmax after NSPM 7 was signed. Not one leader, not one leftist thought leader, member of Congress, senator, nobody has said we distance ourselves from the violent rhetoric. The left refuses to rid themselves of the justification for violence, Gorka continued. And as such, President Trump is taking measures to protect us from the violent rhetoric that becomes snipers and bullets. Remember, it's not violence that they are combating. It's rhetoric. Okay? It's not violence that they're combating. It's rhetoric. As in, any sort of expression of discontent towards the Trump administration or any number of different actions that they take can be considered violent rhetoric. They are trying to tie you saying, I don't fucking like what ICE is doing, or ICE is Gestapo, or this is Nazi shit, to a false claim that this means like you are opening up a floodgate of enforcement. They are trying to do this. They already tried to do this with material support. They've been trying to do this with material support to terror organizations, trying to claim that speech is material support for terror organizations. Okay? And they're doing it now at the domestic level as well. For the record, as it stands currently in the United States of America, material support does not extend to language, okay? It is not illegal in the United States of America to even fucking say you support known designated terror organizations, foreign terror organizations. You can say you support it. It is, up until this moment, not been illegal. We are a nation where fucking David Duke, the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, ran for office. We are a nation where members of the American Nazi Party run for office. Okay? Well, you might consider that to be extreme, and I certainly do. The reason for why this has been allowed is partially because of the First Amendment. Now they're taking that away. Another aspect of this is, again, anti-Americanism. Remember, these are the hallmarks of terror, they say. Anti-Americanism. Now think, close your eyes for a brief moment and think, who do the Republicans accuse of anti-Americanism? It's not just those who liberals consider to be radicals themselves. It's everyone, okay? The entirety of the Democratic Party and its base of support. Who do the Republicans accuse of anti-capitalism? Nancy Pelosi is a communist in the eyes of the Republican Party. Kamala Harris is a socialist communist in the eyes of the Republican Party. Anti-Christianity as well. This is designed to target any and every liberal, any and every person on U.S. soil that has ever looked at what Trump is doing and said, I don't like this. Yeah, reminder, this was a literal candidate that the Republicans propped up, Arthur J. Jones, American neo-Nazi Holocaust denier, and he almost won. Yeah, he's also been a member of the Populist Party, a far-right political party active in the 90s and 80s. Wasn't this the guy who ran in the Illinois district over and over again? And he almost fucking won in the 3rd congressional district in one of the elections. Yeah. He got the most in Illinois 3rd congressional district general election in 2018. He was the Republican that got the most votes. He got 25%. %. Of course, another part of this story is the question, the obvious question, is there a difference between far left extremism and far right extremism? And the answer, of course, is yes. Now, I'm biased. I'm obviously biased. But think for a brief moment. We are billed as far left extremists. And as far left extremists, we believe that everyone should have health care. We believe that the interests of profits cannot go over the interests of the people. We believe that everyone should have more autonomy in the workplace. We believe that people should have free education all the way up to the college level, no matter what their background looks like. We believe in a more tolerant approach to immigration instead of immediately deciding that things we don't understand are awful and scary and must be excised and destroying America. We believe that these populations are actually helpful to build this multifaceted, diverse American culture. Is that the same as the exact opposite of this position, to target people due to inalienable traits and characteristics and then punishing them and putting them in concentration camps and kicking them out of this country? I don't think so. Fantastic stuff. That is where we're at, though.
ICE agents arrested the head of Iowa's largest school district. Immigration officials say Des Moines Public School Superintendent Ian Roberts was considered an ICE fugitive and was living and working in the country illegally. Lana Zach brings us more from Iowa.
Protesters rallied outside of the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration offices in Des Moines Friday, stunned by the arrest of public school superintendent Ian Roberts, an immigrant from Guyana.
The general public, I think, is not okay with what's happening.
In a targeted enforcement operation, Roberts allegedly fled before being arrested. Officials say inside the vehicle he was driving, they found thousands of dollars in cash and a loaded handgun. It is a crime for someone without legal status to possess a firearm.
We do not have all the facts. There is much we do not know. However, what we do know is that Dr. Roberts has been an integral part of our school community.
Roberts became superintendent of Iowa's largest school system in 2023. The district says he disclosed that he had previously pled guilty to a minor firearms charge.
We have a plan to reimagine education here for the future in Des Moines.
But they say they were not aware of a deportation order issued last May.
Bro, this guy's this guy's a literal stud, okay? Just, he's so awesome. a go-getter, an overachiever. The very fact that this is the type of person that this administration is actively trying to deport from this country, a role model, a pillar of the community, someone who is an overachiever by every metric, like a good person, but not just a good person, but like an Olympic athlete. Like, this is who we have to get out of the country? Are you fucking insane? This makes no sense. Like, go ahead, try to explain this to people. Unless you are straight up a Klansman who sees a black person and goes, hell yeah, I'm glad that we got this scary thug out of here. Like, most people are going to look at this and be like, why the fuck are you kicking this guy out? There's like a million dumb fuck dipshits I think would be better served if we kicked them out than this guy. Like, what the fuck? And he is the norm, for the record. Like, he is an exceptional person. His background is exceptional. Okay? His background is exceptional. But there are plenty of people who also play a formative role who play a major role in their communities. Like, I can't believe it. A lady called her Iowa congressman's office and popped the fuck off.
Congressman Nunn's office. How can I help you today?
Hi, I want to know why Mr. Nunn has not done anything about the administration and ICE detaining my children's superintendent today.
Yes, ma'am. Hi, the congressman is aware of the situation with Dr. Roberts. It is deeply unfortunate.
It's not deeply unfortunate, it's deeply illegal. 8 USC 1357. ICE does not have the right to detain U.S. citizens. Calling it unfortunate is offensive. They're fascists. What's he gonna do about it? What the is he gonna do about it?
Ma'am, the congressman is aware of the situation.
Aware isn't enough. What action is he taking?
Ma'am, all I can say is that the congressman is aware of the
Okay, that makes it worse. Him being aware of the situation and a U.S. citizen, my children's superintendent, still being detained illegally is worse. That's worse. I was hoping maybe he hadn't heard of it yet, and that's why he was doing nothing for the people of this district. But in fact, he knows that the people of this district are being harmed by him, and he's just sitting back doing nothing. Shame on him, and shame on you for working for him. I hope you all go to prison. Have a terrible day.
Trump won the city of Des Moines 55-45. Iowa is red as fuck. Red state. White people fired up. This is hugely a good sign. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think Des Moines, Iowa fucks with this decision. Are there obvious, like, straight up Klansmen that are going to look at this and be like, hell yeah, brother, this is why I voted for? Sure. But I don't think the people, the normal whites are going to look at this and be like, great, I'm so glad you have apprehended an overachieving, beloved figure that is a pillar of this fucking community. You're talking about a guy, like, this is where the DEI hire narrative becomes even clearer than before. Obviously, it's a way to just like say, oh, that's a black person. He didn't deserve to be here. We all know that. But this is where it becomes undeniable when you got a dude who has a fucking PhD and has done numerous lectures and is like an Olympic athlete, an Olympian, okay, who rose through the ranks and became the superintendent of the district, like, and is a beloved figure in the community, getting treated like a criminal. I don't see this. I do not see this being great for the administration. This is even worse in terms of the reception from the broader population that's impacted by this. This is even worse than like the random hairdressers getting apprehended and detained and shipped off to El Salvador. That is a crime against humanity in and of itself as well. Make no mistake. But now you're just going after like straight up notable figures in the community. It's only bad if you assume that public opinion and voting will still matter. I don't know why you think that when I talk about broad public sentiment shifting, that I'm actually referencing like a midterms that may or may not happen. I'm talking about broad public sentiment shifting and then there being extreme levels of discontent. In the absence of a pressure valve such as midterm elections or any sort of punishment that you can do through the democratic process, I promise you, people will let their voices be heard. I'm not talking about the midterms. I'm talking about right now. What is this? Disagree. His parents were blue hood, white moderate Republicans from the Chicago suburbs. He was never being named something that wasn't in the Bible. Illinois is like a protected habitat for this type of Republican. They're practically extinct elsewhere. They'll randomly surprise you by being weirdly well-informed and principled on the U.S.-Azerbaijan policy or something like that. This is what Charlie was said to be back when he was knocking doors for Mark Kirk, but Con Inc. robbed him of it. Every time Tammy Duckworth quotes a Black Sun edit that the official DOD account posted and says, the flag is folded wrong here, I think about how Illinois used to have a true heir to Lincoln. They took him out because he revealed Graham's dry streak. Senator Mark Kirk regrets calling Lindsey Graham a bro with no hoe. I do think this is a much more propaganda influenceable situation. If the admin can blow up the illegal gun, et cetera narrative, they can win on this in a state like Iowa. It depends entirely on how well known this guy was before all this happened and how hard it'll be to tarnish his reputation. Low info voters are always easy to fool. Dude, saying that a guy had a gun in Iowa is crazy. Yeah, of course he had a fucking gun, man. It's Iowa. What are we talking about? You're not thinking about this in the perspective of Iowans. Obviously, white Iowans, when they see a black guy with a gun, they automatically assume crime. But like even then, especially if he is a beloved figure in the community, it's not, you know, I mean, he's the fucking superintendent. Hold on. Hold on. White people love authority and is a superintendent. Stephen Miller thinks he's a threat. Yeah, Governor Newsom's press office. Stephen Miller is a fascist. Why do you think they posted this? I'm telling you, like, right now, low key, I get mad at Gavin Newsom, but he is like a magnet, dude. He is like a magnet for conservative discontent at this moment. So I'll take it. I'll fucking take it. He just keeps chirping over and over and over again, knowing full well he's like, yeah, do something about it. And I'm glad that they're just like actively getting mad at him and not actively getting mad at like random people, okay, random American citizens they want to fucking target and prosecute much easier than someone like Gavin fucking Newsom. Yeah, they responded with, because you're a fascist. Because it's true. I just can't believe they took this dude out.
Roberts is accused of overstaying a student visa issued in 1999. In a statement, the local ICE director tells CBS this should be a wake-up call for our communities to the great work that our officers are doing every day to...
Like, that's crazy. Nah, it is a wake-up call for the communities, just not in the direction that you think, dumbass. That's what it is. It quite literally is a wake-up call that this is what ICE does. They take out people who are doing incredible work. They actively go after people who are doing fantastic work, serving their communities in ways that ICE never could dream of. Calling this guy a public safety threat when he is so clearly not, I think, will open up a lot of normal people's eyes to the reality of what ICE is doing. Because it is the diametrical opposite of what Donald Trump presented as combating and targeting, which was violent criminals, violent, scary, monster criminals that the previous woke administration was too cowardly to go after. And then this is who you're fucking apprehending. Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm sorry, if you look at a guy like this and you go, that's a villain, automatically, a guy with a resume like this, if you look at a guy with a resume like this and you say, no, he deserved it, you are straight up a fucking grand wizard of the Klan, okay? Like, I don't even think regular racists would openly be like, yeah, this guy needed to go. Like, he is so above and beyond that, like, the average racist that's just like, I don't know about black people, I don't know about Mexicans. Like, the average racist would look at this guy and be like, oh, maybe you should have let this guy go. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. That's fucking nuts. Yeah, handsome Olympian PhD holder, superintendent, swagged out to the fucking max. Just a wonderful beacon in his community. And these guys are like, nope, yeah, he's got to go. I think you're sleeping on the average races. No, man. I'm saying that there is levels to this shit, okay? There's levels to this shit. I'm not saying that the average race is a good guy. I'm saying you don't have to be a good guy to think this is a bad thing. Do you not understand? This is not about like good bad dynamics here. I'm saying even bad people would look at a situation like this and go, "Okay, this is a bridge too far, okay?" That's it. You're sleeping on the difference between New Jersey and Pennsylvania races and Iowa races. You live too long on the coast, I'm afraid. Dog, the Iowa races that sends his school still actually has encountered this superintendent. And if he's like a polite guy, they will literally go, I don't know, he might be one of the good ones. You know what I mean?
Remove public safety threats.
I love Dr. Roberts. He has been a wonderful superintendent for us.
Roberts, a former Olympic athlete, had been well liked by many in the community. And while some are now questioning what background checks were done by the school district, others are questioning the motivation behind the arrest.
He was targeted specifically because he won't give access to ICE to arrest our kids. And we are 100% behind him.
For CBS Saturday Morning, Lana Zach in Iowa.
Oh, I could totally see that too.
Tonight, students, parents, and community
I didn't
members.
even think about that. I'm telling you, man, look at that crowd. That's one day. That's day one. Okay. I'm telling you, that's day one. Chatter said New Jersey and PA as if they aren't filled with Nazis. Guys, there are unimaginably racist people everywhere. Okay. There are unimaginably racist people everywhere in this country. Wake the fuck up. Okay. But y'all are being crazy if you think that, like, what do we always talk about? Republicans are the leopards are eating my face party. Okay. This is for some, this will be a leopards are eating my face moment. Okay. That's all I'm saying. It's kind of like voting for anti-abortion initiatives and then actually experiencing that. When it becomes real, it's different. This is a moment where it becomes real for everyone in fucking Des Moines, Iowa. Not every single person that looks at that is going to go, hell yeah, I'm glad they did this. Okay? It already probably pissed off every single liberal, every single Democratic Party voter in the area. Okay? In a 150-mile radius to begin with. It also woke up a lot of the apoliticals into action. But not only that, but I'm telling you, there are probably Republicans in the margins that will still, it pissed off all the independents and even some of the Republicans. Okay? There is no coalition you can keep up when you do stuff like this. No, you're right about this. Various Republicans I follow who lived in the town where the Haitian migrant hysteria thing happened were super put off by the Haitian migrants eating pets thing and actively called it out. You got to remember the mindset of like the normie, okay? The normie is not as fucking tuned into this shit as you are. A big chunk of that is obviously privilege. A big chunk of that is also because they're too busy with their own shit, okay? But when something like this is beamed into their television screens, all of a sudden they go, what the fuck is this? Hey, yo. Like you're thinking that every single person is as like tuned into everything that's happening in the real world as you are and actively making a decision to ignore it or champion it. That's not the case. For the normies, there are still dudes out there. There are still plenty of fucking normies out there that you could potentially encounter that have no opinion on Israel-Palestine, for example. This is the most consequential issue right now in global affairs. A genocide is taking place. We're paying for it with our tax dollars, right? For you guys, that seems impossible to avoid. I promise you, there are a fuck ton of apolitical normies who are just like, I don't really know what's going on. What Israel, Palestine, what is it? I haven't really tuned in. I promise you. The average person is also not Stephen Miller or Trump levels of evil. They aren't automatically the furthest right because they're uninformed, chat. Exactly. They have fears, hysterical fears because they have beamed Fox News into their collective consciousness. Okay. But this becomes real. All of a sudden, this is on their doorstep. Why do you think I always talk about discontent growing on Trump's immigration agenda? After people start realizing that means people are getting apprehended at the grocery stores. Because there's a difference between championing a cause online or championing a cause in theory by believing the bullshit hysteria surrounding said cause versus seeing it in front of you. I talk about this every day, so I'm shocked that people don't understand when it happens once again. Like the other day, ICE came in and apprehended a grocery store clerk, right? In broad daylight, in the middle of the fucking day. People took out their phone cameras and started filming. How much you want to bet there were Republicans there that were also grossed out by that process? That's the difference between talking shit to someone online, for example, and then talking to them in person. The energy is very different because the humanity of the person that's being harmed is impossible to look in the other direction of. That's why I say there's levels to this shit, okay? That's why I say there's levels to like how racist someone thinks they are even versus how racist they are in the real world. Valentina Gomez comes to mind. A fantastic example. I told you guys, Valentina Gomez was getting so many likes on Twitter when she was running for treasury of her whatever state that she's in. I forget where it was. Was it Missouri? She was running for treasurer, right? And she kept talking. She kept like saying the F slur and saying we have to kill all F words and we have to kill all trans people, all this stuff. And she was getting hundreds of thousands of likes. And you guys were like, look how racist these people are. These people are, she's going to win. I was like, no, she's not. Because I'm willing to bet that even in a state like Missouri, even in Republican company, if she talked like that in polite society amongst other Republicans, unless she's literally in a fucking Klan meeting, people would tell her to shut the fuck up. Republicans would tell her to shut the fuck up. And guess what? She got like 7th place in that fucking treasurer's race. She got the most amount of clout on Twitter, though, but she got 7th place. There is a difference between what you can get away with. There's a difference between what you can get away with online and what you experience in the real world. I'm not suggesting this is an unwinnable conflict for our side. I'm saying Iowa is the worst case scenario state. This isn't reddish purple state. Trust me when I say this. Trust me when I say this. Iowa will shock you. Okay? Every part of this country will shock you if you don't understand the theory that is already implemented, the theory that you are experiencing in action. Okay? Every part of this country will surprise you because when this kind of action comes to their neighborhood, when this kind of enforcement comes to their neighborhood, there is a very different attitude. And the example I kept using over and over again, and no, I'm not talking about Iowa voting for Obama twice, guys. Stop. I'm not talking about that at all. This is not about politics. This is about something different. This is about human behavior, okay? This is about how human behavior works online versus how human behavior works in the real world, okay? This has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican and everything to do with people seeing this kind of action be implemented and then immediately going, that's not for me. Okay? Think about it like it's experiencing an ick. Okay? I promise you there aren't that many people, even in the Republican Party, that go around and watch things like this happen in broad daylight, in real time, in front of their own eyes and go, hell yeah, this is what I voted for. Let's go. I'm not saying there aren't people like that at all. Of course there are, but they're fucking freaks. They're like the lady who goes to the Starbucks to be like, you didn't sufficiently serve me my Charlie Kirk latte. Okay? They're gross. They're monsters. They get a lot of play online, but in the real world, it will cause other Republicans to look at them and go, oh, what the fuck? You like this? This is crazy. And then also on top of that, you got the tariffs long dicking in a place like Iowa, as Corso is correctly pointing out. So their financial situation is not improving. So obviously, when you got a bunch of states that are already potentially experiencing recession, they're not going to be like, there's anything hopeful about this administration. All I've seen is just like insane enforcement. Insane enforcement of like non-criminals, beloved figures in the community. Get the fuck out of here. Especially in the absence of receiving treats, the Republican will look at a situation like this and go, maybe this is my breaking point. If they were getting treats and they saw this kind of stuff, maybe they would say, well, at least I'm still getting something out of this administration. But the very fact that they're not getting something out of this administration and they're doing this is going to cause more discontent.
Are coming together to show their support for Roberts.
We will love one another. We will stand for what is right. We will stand for justice.
I think you underestimate people. I'm sorry, but on the ground in Nashville, I don't see this becoming a thing. They don't care. First of all, Nashville is already fucking blue, so you're wrong. Your opinion is warped on that regard. And number two, Nashville hasn't seen this yet to the same degree. As far as I can tell, maybe there has been a high-profile incident, but like I cover all this stuff. And I haven't seen something like this happening in Nashville yet. But trust me, if it does, dude, we live in a country where the overwhelming majority, in the immediate aftermath of the execution of George Floyd, the overwhelming majority population agreed with burning down the police precinct. I think you guys have totally fucking subscribed to the media narratives about how reactionary the average American is. And to a certain degree, it's true. Okay? Like, I think we forgot. And in a country where people love cops, okay, because of a steady flow of propaganda, people love policing as an institution, okay? But you are oblivious if you think that the average person that doesn't really pay attention to this stuff could not be radicalized on the spot when they see something like this happen in their backyard. There's a difference between fantasizing about crime happening in blue cities hundreds of miles away versus having the military roll tanks through your fucking streets. Nobody wants the military to roll tanks through their fucking streets, not even Republicans. Okay? Especially when they realize in that very moment, maybe crime isn't all that bad. What the fuck is this shit? That's it. And for the record, look no further than abortion. I keep going back to this over and over again, okay? I keep going back to this over and over and over again. Look no further than abortion. Republicans that thought that they wanted abortion restrictions forever, literally once implemented, were like, okay, I didn't want that at all. I didn't want it. What the fuck? I didn't realize, like, if my daughter is sexually assaulted, like, I want to be able to get a fucking abortion. Or if my wife has an ectopic pregnancy, I want to be able to get this abortion. What the fuck? All right.
For justice.
State Representative and Reverend Rob Johnson put out a call for concerned citizens to join him at Corinthian Baptist Church in Des Moines. Roughly 200 people answered that call and cheered him on as he expressed his support.
But I want to be very clear. We're not just going to throw Ian Roberts away. I don't care what time.
But tonight's rally wasn't just a way to show support, it was a demand for change. Betty Andrews of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP encouraged attendees to take action not just for Roberts, but other individuals detained by ICE.
It's concerning. We are concerned. But we're here today with all of you, monitoring, making sure, and letting our voice be heard.
Community leaders encouraged unity in a time of disconnect and hope in the face of fear.
Christian influencers, okay? You said, we talked about the woke right, and you said...
So this is Benjamin Netanyahu doing a conference with social media influencers after his horrible speech that he delivered. Oh, by the way, actually, you know what? Before I get to this, I do want to talk about Dr. Ian Roberts being picked up by ICE. This is from the St. Louis Reddit. There's a lot of details about who this guy is and his background and stuff. Hold on. My mom is here, so Kai is freaking out. Anyway, Benjamin Netanyahu's I'm not talking about Benjamin Netanyahu. Sorry, I don't know why. I just reset my brain for a second. I want to give you guys a little bit more into the background of this person from people from the actual subreddit itself, from r/St. Louis. Today, does anyone here have experience with this educator from St. Louis Public Schools? According to LinkedIn, he was an administrator with SLPS from 2015 to 2018. He has been the superintendent of schools in Des Moines, Iowa for the past 2 years. Today, ICE picked him up in Des Moines. According to media reports, he has an order removed from the year 2024 and no work authorization. He reportedly ran from cops and when captured had a loaded handgun and $3,000 in cash. He has a previous gun charge, which, again, according to media reports, is a felony because people here without legal authorization are not supposed to have guns. It may be that the previous gun charge was not a big deal. It had to do with hunting activity. This is a big deal in Iowa. Anyone know him? The person says, he was my direct supervisor in St. Louis Public Schools 10 years ago. Stand-up guy who was passionate about helping kids. Really supported me as a new principal. This is good to know. Do not believe a priori the report about the handgun and cash. ICE will simply make shit up now. They're totally unaccountable. Again, healthy amount of skepticism and scrutiny towards federal law enforcement, especially ICE. For ICE, I definitely agree with that kind of scrutiny. But I don't think that it was bullshit. I could totally see him having a gun, for the record, because it's fucking Iowa. It's normal, okay? The notion that this would be a severe... the notion that this would be considered something so severe that it's punishable with deportation is fucking ridiculous. It's just more of a... it's more proof that he's just an American, okay? I attached the first article from Des Moines newspaper. He's the district here has the district's reaction to information about the issues you raised. Friends who work with him said he was a friendly professional, knew his stuff. Friends from Des Moines say this was a hit because he wouldn't let ICE into the school buildings to grab kids. I'm an educator in Des Moines. The idea of this being a targeted hit is accurate. At least it feels like it. ICE has published inaccurate information in their official releases indicating he entered the country in 1999 on a student visa, but he graduated from Chopin State in 1998. So there's definite credibility question of his final order to vacate timeline. They also try to smear him with an old weapon charge, even calling it criminal, when in truth it was a hunting rifle in the backseat of his car that he paid a $100 ticket for. They also suggest he had no work authorization, but he was approved by a third-party betting source when we hired him, a vetting source when we hired him, and had a complete I-9 with all appropriate and requirement documentation. Thank you for all your input. I know the West Des Moines School District does federal background checks and other extensive ones. This is the same for DSM District. That blows credibility as well. It's crazy, man. That's actually crazy. People need to understand his previous gun charge was legally valid hunting, leaving a legally valid hunting rifle in his vehicle. Any guns he owned were perfectly legal until his status was revoked. A review of this man's history shows him to be anything other than a criminal. I'm questioning the ICE narrative and the media, the narrative of the media putting on him. He entered in on a student visa in 99, yet he legally attended Coppin State since 1995. The only statement I can find from him regarding immigration is that his parents immigrated, and here he says he's a U.S. citizen. This appears to be a hit and a smear campaign. Here he states he was born in Guyana. This is the more interesting response. He states in his birth in Guyana in an interview in Brooklyn. Other people put together he's maybe been here since he was 5. So we're looking at either residence in the USA since childhood with no restrictions on ability to work, study, travel in his life, a possible dual citizenship issue, or a student visa that actually did expire after he left his grad program in 2023-2024. Whatever the case, an immigration judge under the DOJ, not ICE, ordered his deportation. Given the details, it is extremely unlikely to impossible for him to have U.S. citizenship. If birthright citizenship, he would not be deportable. Alternatively, it is very, very rare to denaturalize a naturalized citizen. Yeah, so he's probably not an American citizen. It makes sense. It makes sense if he was in a grad school program all the way until 2024, and then they immediately kicked in an order of removal once his student visa was his student visa was up. Not that it matters. Even if he was here illegally since 1999, I don't give a shit. That person is an exemplary human being that all immigrants that haven't done any crimes, that have just been working regular jobs, deserve to get full-blown documentation, okay? But this person is beyond that as well. He's an exemplary human. What the fuck? Clearly, the very fact that he was the superintendent, clearly the very fact that he was a superintendent in Des Moines implies that numerous background checks have taken place and they've found him to be perfectly fine working in the United States. Like, he had the proper work authorization. Understand that immigration goes both ways, right? This is something that everyone that has exhibited a anti-racist thought, okay? Declaring them enemies of the state. This is also directly antagonistic to the First Amendment. This is a significant attempt to outwardly cripple the First Amendment, okay? NSPM 7 directs a new national strategy to disrupt any individual or groups that foment political violence, including before they result in violent political acts. In other words, they're targeting pre-crime, to reference Minority Report. The Trump administration isn't only targeting organizations or groups, but even individuals and entities, whom NSPM 7 says can be identified by any of the following indicators of violence: anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, as in people who say anti-immigrant sentiments are born out of racism, extremism on race, as in to say that black people should not be disproportionately targeted. Because remember, by the police. Because remember, this is the front-facing, most marketable positions that they can put out there. Do you understand? It will extend to anyone and everyone that is a liberal, that is someone who is maybe even not a liberal, but goes, I don't think racism is good. This extends to every single person in the United States of America at any given moment. Extremism on gender. What could that be? Hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family. Hostility towards those who hold traditional views on religion, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on morality. These are intentionally vague, but if you look at the combination of what they're singling out, this ranges everywhere from people like myself, people like ourselves in this community, all the way down to your fucking parents that were lifelong Republican voters who might have switched at some point to vote for Kamala Harris or to vote for Joe Biden. Do you understand? The United States requires a national strategy to investigate and disrupt networks, entities, and organizations that foment political violence so that law enforcement can intervene in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts, the directive states. A pre-crime endeavor, preventing attacks before they happen, is core to the post-9/11 concept of counterterrorism itself. No longer satisfied to investigate acts of terrorism after the fact to bring terrorists to justice, the Bush administration adopted preemption. And for a lot of people who were oblivious to what they were doing at the time, this simply meant round the clock, 24/7 surveillance in Muslim neighborhoods, trying to find, like, the FBI used to do this all the time, trying to find people who are like, who have like intellectual disabilities and whatnot, to try to goad them into doing something, like to try to radicalize them, then goad them into doing something, and then stopping it ahead of time to basically say, look, we did it. Many such cases took place on U.S. soil. Okay? This happened quite a bit. This happened a lot. The FBI used to do this all the fucking time. Okay? They would go after like some autistic teenager who's Muslim online, and they'd be like, ooh, you should get some tannerite at this drop site that we left for you. And then they would apprehend the person and be like, this guy's a terrorist. We apprehended an Islamic terrorist. Okay? Overseas, that led to aerial assassination by drones and special operations kill missions. Domestically, it led to a counterterrorism campaign whose hallmark was excessive and illegal government surveillance and use of undercover agents and confidential human sources to trap and entrap would-be terrorists. You don't actually have to do anything wrong for the federal government to try to present an argument, because in this circumstance, it's more so about building a narrative. So I think what they're doing, just like McCarthyism, just like post 9/11 Islamophobia, what they are trying to create here is an intelligence community backed effort to create a narrative of left-wing terror. So basically what they're going after here, what they're going to be going after here is goading people into Fed posting, as we like to call it, and then trying to apprehend people for engaging in acts of Fed posting to create a narrative, or maybe even let a couple of these incidents go, right? Coerce people, intimidate people into taking action, and then letting a couple of them go, and then say, you see, this is a real violent and dangerous endeavor. We must react. Because right now, I mean, if this is a fully competent administration, which it's not, but right now, there isn't a lot of appetite for this kind of thing. There isn't a lot of appetite for this kind of like mass apprehension, right? But the goal is to manufacture some kind of consent for the federal government to start apprehending and arresting anyone and everyone that is remotely demonstrated empathy at any point. This tactic sounds familiar if you are aware of how America's allies have worked, or puppet states, dictatorships, fascist forms of governance all around the world that we've aligned with. We have done this everywhere else. It's called the Jakarta method for a reason. It was first implemented in Jakarta. Now we are turning that same scrutiny and same principled authoritarian fascist technique to the domestic front. Fascism is colonialism turned inward. And this is fascism. This is imperialism and colonialism turned inward. This is happening at the domestic level now. There is a reason why the terrorism designation, albeit vague, has only been utilized for foreign actors. In the United States of America, no matter how many actual designated acts of domestic terror a group participates in or commits, whether it be Atomwaffen or the Patriot Front or numerous other right-wing organizations, there is no internal mechanism for identifying domestic terrorism and prosecuting domestic terrorism at the point of organizing. This has not happened with the KKK either, right? The reason why it has not happened with the KKK or any of these groups is because of the First Amendment. The second reason why it's never happened with right-wing groups, of course, is because they are not considered too disruptive to the pre-existing hierarchies that the American government has consistently defended. This has, however, happened to the Black Panther Party and numerous other black revolutionary groups. During the civil rights struggle, this is precisely what they did with the Black Panther Party and numerous other organizations. They did it. They disrupted it. They infiltrated these groups. They assassinated its leaders. And I suspect that that's what they're trying to do now. However, even with the Black Panther Party and numerous other black liberation organizations, there was still ultimately a foreign actor that they could associate this movement with. At the time, it was the USSR, right? This was during the Cold War still. So they could still associate it with the USSR, or they could still, there still was a lot of racial animosity, way more so than than it exists now. There is racial animosity in this country. White supremacy has not gone away. This is an inherent contradiction that Americans have never addressed, okay, adequately. Having said that, however, the racial tensions in this country at this stage are nowhere near where they were during the civil rights struggle, okay? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I do not suspect there is enough appetite from the broader base of support, or even just like the broader base of Americans, to allow the government to intercept, infiltrate, and engage in this kind of ridiculous prosecution for any kind of anti-racist organizing, for example. So, on the one hand, I don't think liberals are aware of what's coming next. And I keep repeating this over and over again. I talk about how dangerous this is, how worrisome this is, and how un-American this is, even though it has happened throughout different periods of American history in our darkest chapters. But also, on the other hand, I think once it kicks into high gear, more and more Americans will start getting frustrated. Adam Johnson reports on a similar incident. A federal judge Thursday sentenced a former U.S. Navy sailor to 12 years in prison for plotting a terror attack against a naval station, Great Lakes in Chicago's north suburbs, and seeking to help the Iranian government move radioactive material to the United States. Of course, there were no Iranians involved in this. Reading this headline and article, you would have no idea no Iranians were remotely involved in any of this. Like 99% of FBI foiled terror plots, the plot was a whole cloth invention of the FBI targeting a single dipshit in an elaborate Truman Show style ruse. A reasonable person would come away reading this tweet and article under the distinct impression Iran was attempting to smuggle in radioactive material into the U.S., but they weren't. No Iranian or radioactive material were involved. So more